My stepkids said at dinner, "You're not in charge. You're just mom's backup plan." They laughed. Not loudly, not maliciously. Just one of those laughs that carries the weight of something everyone already knew but hadn't said out loud. Haley smiled like she'd finally nailed the punchline. Luke leaned back in his chair, smug, casual, like he was commenting on the weather. Cindy said nothing. She reached for her wine glass, took a sip, and let the moment slide by as if it were background noise. That was the part that landed hardest. I didn't respond. I didn't push back. I finished chewing my food, dry chicken breast, undercooked broccoli, sticky rice, and nodded like I was just another guest at their table. But inside, something shifted. "You're just mom's backup plan." 6 words. That's all it took. After 6 years of driving them to school, paying for their therapy, fixing their tech, covering every missed payment their father never even acknowledged, those 6 words undid everything. The way they said it, light, careless, told me all I needed to know. They had never seen me as part of the structure. I was scaffolding, a temporary fix, the man who covered for the one who bailed, the man who smiled too much, paid too often, and took every slight on the chin. They didn't hate me. Hate would have been easier. They just didn't respect me. And that made every sacrifice I'd made feel like a joke. I'm Ryan. I'm 45. I work in tech, cybersecurity mostly, from a desk in a windowless home office filled with wires, quiet humming fans, and passwords to everything. It's the only room in the house where I've ever had control. When I married Cindy, she was already 10 years divorced. 2 kids. Luke was 15. Haley was 13. Their father, Jerry, was the typical phantom. The kind who remembered birthdays only when Facebook reminded him, who sent money once every few months with a vague apology for being between gigs. A man who never showed up, but never left the picture either. A ghost with just enough charm to be romanticized. I didn't come into their lives expecting to be anyone's hero. I didn't want to replace their dad. I didn't want parades or Father's Day cards. I just wanted to be steady, present, the adult who didn't leave. So I showed up. Every time. When Luke broke his arm skateboarding, it was me in the ER at 2 a.m. When Haley needed rides to therapy twice a week after her panic attack started, I was the one sitting in the parking lot, reading articles on my phone, trying to understand what she might be feeling. I paid for her first iPad so she could draw. I stayed up helping Luke apply for internships. I handled every login for school platforms, every FAFSA submission, every insurance claim when the dentist billed us wrong. Jerry, on the other hand, lived 2 hours away and somehow always made himself the center of their world. The kids would light up when he texted. Haley once posted an Instagram story of a necklace he mailed her. A $20 chain, probably from a gas station, and captioned it, "He always remembers." I read that from the grocery store parking lot, holding a bag of groceries I had just bought with my own money for her birthday dinner. No caption for that. They never called me Dad. That wasn't the issue. I wasn't craving the title. But what I did crave, what I worked toward every single day, was some sliver of acknowledgement that I mattered. That what I did counted. That I wasn't invisible in the house I helped pay for. I remember the first big winter storm after Cindy and I moved in together. The heater broke. Pipes froze. Jerry didn't answer his phone. I spent 36 hours straight fixing things. Boiling water, running to the hardware store, wrapping every pipe I could find. Luke was sick. Haley cried because her room was freezing. I stayed up through the night, keeping the place livable. Not one thank you. Not from Cindy, not from the kids. Just another day in the life of a placeholder. I didn't complain. I convinced myself that one day, they'd look back and realize who had actually been there. That once they were older, they'd understand what it means to carry a family on your back while someone else gets the applause. But I was wrong. That dinner, those 6 words, made it crystal clear. They saw me as filler. Just a convenient stand-in while the real show went on somewhere else. Haley was a sophomore in college now. Luke was in his final year of high school. And all that time, I'd believed I was building something. I wasn't. I was just buying time. Buying it with credit cards and PTO and nights of lost sleep. 2 days later, I shut everything down. College funds? Gone. I was the sole contributor. I'd started both accounts when I married their mother. Thousands invested, quietly, consistently, month after month. I closed them in 15 minutes. Health insurance? I dropped them both. Removed them from my employer's benefits. Legal. Simple. Clean. Software subscriptions. Haley's design apps. Luke's test prep platforms. Cancelled. Passwords changed. Files wiped. Even the shared Netflix, Spotify, cloud storage gone. Every digital footprint I had left for them erased. I opened a spreadsheet, updated every line with usernames, passwords, expiration dates. Then I sent it all to Jerry in a polite email. Effective immediately, you're in charge of their accounts. They're your children. Let me know if you have any questions. I didn't wait for a reply. When the first bills hit, they didn't even come to me. Haley's university emailed her directly. Luke's tutoring platform logged him out mid-session. Their panic came in waves. First confusion, then blame, then the calls. I didn't answer. Let the backup plan be silent for once. Cindy came into my office the day Haley's financial aid portal locked her out. She held the letter in her hand, eyes wide, voice shaking. You canceled her tuition transfer? I nodded. Yes. Why? Because she's not my responsibility anymore. Apparently, I never was her father. I was just support. She didn't say anything. She stood there like someone who had just seen an avalanche coming and realized there was no shelter nearby. I don't think she ever really believed I'd follow through. I was always the one who came through in the end. The one who paid, who fixed, who absorbed the blow so nobody else had to. Not anymore. They had drawn the line for me. They made it clear I wasn't family. I was a role, temporary, interchangeable, useful only so long as I stayed quiet and paid the bill. So I handed the role back. Jerry didn't call. I'm not sure if he even checked his email. But he'll get the picture soon enough. And when he does, he'll realize what I've known all along. It's easy to be the fun dad when someone else is paying for the roof and the heat and the health insurance. Let's see how fun he is now. Because when the backup quits, the whole system fails. And me? I'm not angry. I'm done. The night it truly broke, snapped in that cold, final way, wasn't some big screaming match. It wasn't a slammed door or a dramatic confrontation. It was worse than that. It was quiet. Luke was in his room on a video call with his friends. Door cracked open just enough to hear, but not enough for me to see him. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was walking past with a load of laundry, something Cindy usually did, but she'd been too tired again that night. I stopped outside his room just long enough to hear one line float out into the hallway. He thinks he's in charge, Luke said, chuckling. He's just Mom's safety net. The laughter that followed was brutal. Not loud, but sharp, real. Then Haley chimed in, her voice coming through someone else's speaker. It'd honestly be easier without him. At least Dad would show up more. I didn't drop the laundry. I didn't storm in. I didn't shout. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10. Long enough for the air to feel thicker, my breath tighter. Then I walked down the hall, folded the clothes, put them in drawers. After that, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop again. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel rage. It was something colder. The kind of stillness that comes when you realize you've been dead in the house for years, and only now do you smell the rot. That was the night I started dismantling everything. Properly this time. Not just the financial stuff. That part had been easy. The subscriptions, the accounts, the safety nets, they were gone. But what remained was the scaffolding of my presence. My effort. My constant attempts to stay woven into a life that wasn't mine. So I began to untie each knot. I unshared the family calendar. Every dentist appointment, parent-teacher conference, school deadline. I deleted them from my devices. Let Cindy remember. Let Jerry call the front office for information. I closed the shared grocery list we used through an app. I stopped stocking the pantry with the snacks they liked. Stopped buying the almond milk Haley preferred. Stopped keeping the car gassed up for Luke's convenience. When the house ran low on toilet paper, I didn't replenish it. When the smoke detector battery chirped at 3 a.m., I left it. When Haley asked if I could take a look at her cracked phone screen, I said, Ask your dad. I became a ghost in real time. Cindy noticed. Of course she did. But she didn't confront me directly. She circled me instead, gently probing. Hey, did you get a chance to call the insurance about Luke's inhaler refill? Nope. Silence. Then, should I? Up to you. She stared at me, searching. Like maybe I'd glitch and go back to being the guy who picked up every task without needing to be asked, who kept the family spinning like some invisible motor beneath the floorboards. But I didn't blink. I didn't explain, because what was there to explain? They said I wasn't a father. They said I was a backup, a safety net, a ghost. So I stopped being real to them. I withdrew the only thing they actually depended on, my effort. They weren't angry at first. They were confused, mildly inconvenienced. Then Jerry called. He didn't introduce himself, just launched into it. Hey, I got this weird email about accounts? Passwords? A spreadsheet? What's this all about? I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. Rain was tapping the glass. Light drizzle. The kind that makes the world seem like it's holding its breath. It's about your kids, I said. You're up. He paused. What does that mean? It means you're the original, the dad, the title holder. They made that clear. So everything I built is yours now. He tried to laugh like it was some joke he didn't quite get. Wait, are you saying you're cutting them off? Dude, come on. I've got stuff going on. Not my problem, I said, and hung up. It was that easy. I thought it would feel like a betrayal. Didn't. Felt like a release. Later that day, Luke texted me. Just 2 words. You serious? I let it sit. Then another. You really left us? I didn't reply. I turned off notifications. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Handwritten, unfamiliar handwriting. My name on the envelope. No return address. I opened it in my office. It was from Haley. Sorry, she wrote. That was the first word. Then a paragraph. She said she was unfair. That she'd taken me for granted. That I'd done more for them than anyone else and she hadn't seen it until it was gone. She said Jerry wasn't answering his phone anymore. That she'd called twice, texted 6 times, no reply. That he posted a story of himself on a fishing trip with friends while she was on hold with the financial aid office, trying to explain why her tuition hadn't gone through. She didn't beg. She didn't ask for money. She just said she understood now. I read that letter 3 times. It didn't undo anything. Not really. But it cracked something. Not the damage that was done, but the silence. For the first time in 6 years, someone saw me. Not as a step anything. Not as a backup plan. As a man. As the one who had been there. I didn't call her, but I kept the letter. I folded it gently, tucked it into the back of my desk drawer. That same day, I opened a new file on my computer. Plain document. No formatting. Just a blank space. At the top, I typed 1 line. Things I no longer do. Underneath, I began to list them. I don't refill what I didn't empty. I don't attend events I'm not invited to. I don't buy gifts for people who roll their eyes when I speak. I don't pay bills for people who don't acknowledge my presence. I don't offer help where I'm treated like a burden. The list went on. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I wasn't trying to win. I was just drawing a line. And then I lived on my side of it. Cindy tried once more that week. Late night after the kids were in bed. She came into the office, sat on the edge of the desk. I feel like I don't know what's happening, she said. You're distant. I closed the document slowly. You ever wonder what it's like to give everything for 6 years? I asked. And be told you're just a placeholder? Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't deny it. Didn't say they were wrong. She just looked down at her hands. They're kids, she whispered. No, I said. They were kids. They're old enough now to know what words mean. Old enough to understand what I've done. What I've carried. What I've paid for. What I've swallowed. She didn't speak, and neither did I. I stood, walked past her, turned out the lights, left her sitting there in the dark, finally realizing what it feels like when the man who held the house together stops pretending. That was the last time I explained myself. 1 week after the silence began, the first bill came due. It was an email from Haley's university. Cindy was sitting at the kitchen island, phone in hand, her expression tightening with each word she read. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at the screen like it had personally insulted her. When she finally looked up, I was pouring my coffee. "She got a notice," she said. "If tuition's not paid by Friday, she's dropped from classes." I nodded, stirred in a little cream. "That checks out." She blinked. "You're really going through with this?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Cindy's voice cracked just slightly. "Ryan, she's about to lose her semester." I took a sip. Calm. "She said I was a backup plan. I'm letting the primary take over." Her jaw tensed, but she didn't argue. Not then. That afternoon, Luke stormed down the stairs, phone clenched in his fist, face flushed red. The fake swagger he always wore was gone, stripped down to panic. My tutoring app logged me out. I didn't look up from my laptop. "Talk to your dad." "What?" "You heard me." He stood there for a few seconds, like he was trying to decide whether to explode or plead. In the end, he scoffed, muttered something under his breath, and left the room. The shift was beginning. For years, I had carried the invisible weight. The financial stress, the scheduling, the planning, the backup plans for the backup plans. I'd made it easy for everyone to ignore how much I did because I did it so quietly. But now they were seeing it. The lights didn't flicker. The roof didn't cave in. But the foundation, it was cracking. They asked Cindy for help next. That night, Luke approached her on the couch. "I need money for gas. I'm completely out." She looked toward me, hesitated. "I don't have it," she said. "You always have it." She looked down at her lap. "No, Luke, I don't." He turned to me, seething. "So that's it? You're cutting us off?" I met his glare. "No, you cut me off. Dinner, remember? You're the adult. I was also the backup. Your words, not mine." He opened his mouth to fire something back, but Cindy stopped him. "Luke, stop." She didn't defend me. Not really. But it was the first time she hadn't defended them either. That night, I sat on the porch and watched the sky. The stars were dull, smudged by the city glow, but I sat anyway. There's something about silence in a home full of people. It's not peace. It's absence. Like a bell that stopped ringing after years of noise. I wondered if they understood yet. What it means to be abandoned, not in theory, not in stories, but in practice. To call out and hear nothing. To reach and feel no hand waiting. The next morning, Haley called Jerry. I know because I heard the whole thing through her bedroom wall. "Dad, I need help. No, listen. My tuition didn't go through and the school's threatening to drop me. Can you just..." A pause. "I don't care if it's short notice. I just..." "What? Are you serious?" Another pause. Her voice cracked then. "So what am I supposed to do?" Silence. Then, "Fine. Whatever. Thanks for nothing." A click. A sob. A door slammed shut. I didn't go to her. That part of me, whatever old instinct still existed to comfort, to step in, had been put to rest. Not out of cruelty. Out of self-respect. I would not be the second call after the first one failed. Cindy came into my office that afternoon. She called Jerry. I figured. He said he couldn't help. Said she should have asked earlier. I didn't say anything. "She's scared," she added. I kept typing. So was I. Every time I paid her tuition and didn't know how we'd cover groceries. Every time I took a second job just to float them while Jerry played ghost. She didn't care then. Cindy sat down. "They're kids. They're grown. And they're learning that actions have consequences." She stayed quiet a long time. Then, "You could still help. Just this once." I turned to her. "If I help now, I teach them that disrespect is negotiable. That they can burn the bridge and still cross it. That they never need to take me seriously." "They were hurt," she said. "They lashed out." I nodded. "And I'm done playing sponge to absorb it." She didn't respond. Just left the room. The next few days were chaos in slow motion. Luke's fuel card stopped working. He called Jerry. Same result, voicemail. Haley's school sent another notice. Final warning. They started circling me like moths, trying to find an opening. Luke asked if I could just spot him 20. Like we were buddies and none of this had happened. Haley asked if I could at least co-sign a short-term loan, just to keep her enrolled. I declined. Politely. Firmly. Cindy cried that night. You're really going to let them fall? No, I said. I'm letting them learn. She didn't sleep in our bed that night. That weekend, the house went quiet again. The kind of quiet that precedes a storm. And then, Sunday evening, the storm came. It started with Haley. She knocked on the office door, waited until I said, "Come in," then entered with the kind of posture you only wear when you've already been defeated. "I'm sorry," she said. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was tired. "You've done a lot," she said. "More than Dad. More than anyone, really. I just didn't see it." I didn't say anything. I wanted to know if this was genuine or another pitch. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a folder. Handed it to me. Inside were copies of her financial aid forms, emails to the bursar, timelines. Everything laid out. "I don't want a handout," she said. "I want help. Real help. But only if you want to." And with that, she left. I stared at that folder for 20 minutes. Not because I was going to pay. Not because I was ready to change my stance. But because, for the first time, one of them had come to me with humility instead of entitlement. Luke didn't follow suit. He stayed angry. Stayed quiet. When I passed him in the hallway, he looked through me. That's fine. Not all bridges are meant to be rebuilt. Monday morning came. The deadline. Haley sat at the kitchen table, staring at her laptop. Cindy hovered behind her, hands wringing. I walked in, set the folder back down in front of her. "I'll consider it," I said. "But it won't be like before." Her eyes widened, but she didn't speak. "If I help," I continued, "there will be terms, respect, communication, accountability. If any of that breaks, I walk. No warnings, no conversations, just silence, like you gave me." She nodded. I turned to Cindy. "You okay with that?" She nodded too, slowly, like someone realizing the tide had turned for good. That afternoon, I made a payment. Just enough to keep her enrolled. No more. Luke didn't speak to me for days. That was fine too, because the point wasn't revenge. It was recognition. I didn't want their gratitude. I wanted them to understand the structure they'd taken for granted was never built by their father's name. It was built by mine. Now they were learning that structure had a cost, and they'd pay it one way or another. Cindy and I are still married, if you can call it that. We live under the same roof. We eat the same meals. We sleep in the same bed. But something changed in the house after I pulled the plug. Something fundamental. Something that can't be fixed with shared dinners or polite smiles. There's distance now. Measured. Quiet. Deliberate. Not just between me and the kids, between me and her. Because in the end, Cindy never defended me. Not really. Not when it counted. She watched as they dismissed me, minimized me, used me. She shrugged it off. Called it teenage angst. Said they didn't mean it. Said I should be the bigger person. Over and over, for years. Until I wasn't. Until I drew the line. And now, that line runs right through the center of our marriage. Haley graduated last spring. She sent me an invitation. Addressed it to Ryan. Not Dad. But she included a note inside. A real one. Not handwritten, not emotional. Just simple. "Thank you for getting me there." I went. I sat in the crowd alone. Jerry showed up too, of course. Sat 2 rows ahead, with his new wife, pretending like he'd earned a place in the photos. I didn't speak to him. Didn't need to. He looked older. Smaller somehow. Like a man who had missed too many chances and knew it. Haley hugged me after the ceremony. Said, "I get it now." I nodded. That was enough. Luke never came around. We haven't spoken in over a year. He moved out, started a job out of state. He texts Cindy occasionally. Sends her photos of his apartment, his new car. Nothing to me. Not even a forwarding address. I don't chase ghosts anymore. I used to wonder if it was my fault. If I had been too cold, too rigid, too slow to forgive. But then I remember how many years I tried. How many holidays I planned. How many nights I stayed up fixing things no one even noticed. How many apologies I gave when I wasn't the one who broke anything. And I stopped wondering. Because it wasn't about perfection. It was about principle. And somewhere along the line, they all learned that my presence was disposable. That love could be expected without being earned. That sacrifice could be ignored because I'd never make them feel the cost. Until I did. Now they understand what I was worth. Cindy walks carefully these days. She doesn't ask me to cover for Jerry anymore. Doesn't nudge me to buy gifts or fund vacations or lend money. She knows better. She's seen what happens when the quiet man at the center of the home stops playing along. She asks me what I'm thinking more often. Watches my face during dinner. I see it. She's searching for signs. Signs that I've come back, that I've softened. That I might still be the man who once carried her and her children without asking for anything in return. But that man doesn't live here anymore. Now I live by different rules. I don't fund what doesn't respect me. I don't build futures for people who want to erase my past. I don't make plans I wasn't invited to. And most importantly, I don't beg for a place in a world that treats me like a spare tire. If they want me in their lives, they'll show it. Not just with words, with action, with presence, with acknowledgement. If they don't, I'll be just fine. I've rebuilt my boundaries brick by brick. I track what I give. I weigh what I get. I keep receipts, mental, emotional, financial. Not to throw them in anyone's face, but to remind myself that I am not bottomless. I have limits, and I reach them. Some nights I walk the house in silence. I pass the rooms I once painted, the furniture I once assembled. The hallway light that flickers because no one ever replaced the bulb. The garage shelf still holding Luke's old gear, gathering dust. I don't touch it. I just let it sit there. A monument to what was and what won't be again. I remember once, early on, before all the cracks showed, Haley came home from school crying. A bad grade, a fight with a friend. I don't remember which. I do remember sitting with her on the front porch, her head against my shoulder, her tears soaking into my shirt. She asked if I'd still love her even when she messed up. Always, I said. But love doesn't mean I'll always rescue you. Back then, she didn't understand what that meant. Now she does. She sends me updates sometimes. Texts about work, photos of her apartment, questions about insurance and taxes and rent. She doesn't call me dad. But there's respect now. Earned, not assumed. Quiet but steady. And honestly, I'll take that over any forced affection. Because family isn't about DNA. It's about choice. Loyalty. Showing up when it's hard. Not just when the cameras are on, not just when there's applause, not just when there's something to gain. It's about the hard parts. The boring parts. The parts where no one's watching and you show up anyway. I did that. For years. And they spat on it. Let me say this plainly. I'm not bitter. I'm not vengeful. But I am awake now. Awake to what I gave. Awake to who saw it. Awake to who didn't. You can't unlearn that kind of clarity. And I won't go back to sleep. So if you're reading this, if you've stood in my shoes, carried the weight, paid the bills, stayed up late fixing problems you didn't cause, if you've loved children who only saw you as a debit card and a chauffeur and a punching bag, let me say this to you directly. You are not wrong for drawing the line. You are not cruel for demanding respect. You are not selfish for saying, enough. Because when people tell you over and over in words and actions that you don't matter, you don't owe them your silence. You owe yourself your peace. And when you take it back, they'll notice. They'll rage maybe, or sulk, or pretend they didn't need you. But deep down they'll know. They'll know who kept the lights on, who kept the family functional, who patched the holes Jerry left behind. And they'll either grow from that realization, or they'll carry the consequences. But either way, you'll be free. So I'll leave you with this. Was I wrong? Was I cruel to finally demand the respect I had earned? Or was it the only way to reclaim myself from the prison of thankless devotion? Tell me, if you had been in my place, what would you have done? Would you have stayed? Or would you, too, have finally let it all go? Because sometimes the strongest thing a man can do for a family is leave it to stand without him, and let them learn what they lost when the backup plan walked away for good.